Russell Bentley was raised in Texas, in a wealthy upper-middle-class family in Highland Park, Dallas, Texas, a very elitist area. His family was religious and conservative. In his youth, Bentley joined the U.S. Army in the 1980s, where he spent several years stationed at a base in Germany and extensively explored Europe. As a demolition specialist and combat engineer, he ended his service with an honorable discharge. After that, he moved to South Padre Island, Texas, where his family owned a restaurant. He lived there for 7 years before settling in Minneapolis, a city where his interest in politics was sparked. During this time, Bentley followed a girlfriend to Minnesota. There, he delved into the world of cannabis legalization and decided to run for the United States Senate in 1990 as a member of the pro-marijuana People's Party, whose motto was "Lower taxes, higher taxpayers." He garnered almost 2% of the votes statewide. Failing to get elected, he decided to turn to trafficking by importing substantial quantities of marijuana from Texas to Minnesota. In 1996, Bentley was caught by the DEA. He was arrested for drug trafficking activities and sentenced to federal prison for 5 years. But just a few months before his scheduled release in 1999, according to court documents, Bentley escaped from the minimum security facility where he was detained. Bentley remained a fugitive for nearly a decade before being recaptured in 2007. He was placed in a maximum security prison until he served the end of his sentence. In the mid-1990s, Bentley embarked on a radicalizing journey to Cuba, a place where his socialist leanings evolved into communism. During his stay, he met with a Cuban army captain who defined communism for him by saying, "A communist is someone ready to fight for socialism." Inspired by these words, Bentley decided, "No more half measures and identifying only as a socialist. I am a communist." Bentley engaged in demonstrations and protests against both Gulf Wars and actively supported the rights of immigrants, women, and the LGBT community. Over time, he grew increasingly disillusioned with the foreign policy of the United States, reaching a point of disgust and anger with NATO's intervention in Libya in 2011. This motivated him to act, as he did not want to just be a passive observer, criticizing on social media. In 2014, the tragedy in Odessa, Ukraine, where dozens of people were killed in clashes between pro- and anti-Euromaidan groups, was a turning point for him. Shocked by the images circulating on the internet, Bentley decided to go to Ukraine to protect the civilians he believed were in danger. Before going to Ukraine, Russell Bentley said he had a great life, a great job, a great girlfriend who was a yoga instructor and also 20 years younger than him. He had a comfortable life, earning $1,000 a week working as a salesman. Bentley packed his bags, rode his motorcycle to Dallas, and spent one last Thanksgiving with his family. He sold his motorcycle and took a flight to Moscow. A self-declared communist, he joined the Russian forces to fight in the eastern region of Donbass, Ukraine, in 2014. But in order to do so, he was asked to report to the Ministry of State Security, where he was interrogated for 6 hours about whether he was an American spy. When his interrogator asked him, "What are you going to do if the army won't take you?" he replied, "I'll do counter-propaganda." Since leaving Texas in 2014, Russell Bentley has done everything he could to adopt the Russian way of life. Since December 2014, he had been living in Petrovsky, Donetsk, with his wife Ludmila, a native of the eastern region of Ukraine, converted to the Orthodox faith, obtained Russian citizenship, and bought a house. Russell Bentley joined the Vostok Battalion, one of the main pro-Russia units in Donbass. But he would only fight for 6 months in this unit before becoming Texas and the Donbass Cowboy, nicknames he used on social media and in his appearances on the Russian news channel Sputnik. But in June 2015, his unit was transferred to a Special Forces battalion. At his age, Bentley was ill-suited for this new post, and he realized he could perhaps be put to better use as an English-speaking information warrior, creating the kinds of media that drew him into the war to begin with. He started out by posting shaky homemade videos on his Facebook page. Bentley liked to display the Texas flag behind him in his YouTube videos, and he still kept in touch with members of his family in the United States. He described himself as a poet and said that the United States today is governed by a group of original fascists and oligarchic corporations, enemies of Russia and humanity as a whole. He said he dedicated his life to fighting them, especially after the U.S. invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq, which he claimed were based on lies and committed crimes against humanity. On April 8, 2024, Russell Bentley was detained by Russian troops in Donetsk. His wife, Ludmila Bentley, said that on the day her husband disappeared, they arrived at the Petrovsky Municipal Building in the Donetsk region, controlled by Russian forces around 3:30 p.m. Upon arrival, they were confronted with distressing reports of civilians hit by bombings. Moved by compassion, the fighter promptly volunteered to help the injured. She decided to wait for him inside the building. However, his absence after 4:15 p.m. raised her concern. Later, she was informed by witnesses that someone who did not speak Russian and was without documents had been abducted. The victim was blindfolded and immobilized before being taken under mysterious circumstances. Ludmila noticed that next to the car was her husband's broken cell phone, along with his hat and glasses. Unable to find the car keys, she planned to return in the morning. However, witnesses reported that two men in military uniforms had removed the car before she arrived. The Bentley bag, which was recovered, contained his Russian passport, military ID, driver's license, bank cards, a firearm, and the gun permit. Ludmila made a post on her Telegram channel calling for the release of her husband and claiming that he had been kidnapped by Russian soldiers from a tank battalion. She contacted the police, and a criminal investigation was initiated, later forwarded to a military investigation committee. After repairing it, Ludmila handed over her husband's phone, but she has not received any further information from the police since then. Independent journalists reported that Russell Bentley disappeared while documenting the effects of a Ukrainian attack on a military unit. According to reports, Bentley was captured by individuals in camouflage attire, who possibly mistook him for a spy, taking him for interrogation. 11 days after his disappearance, Russell Bentley was found dead amid allegations that he was captured by Russian soldiers who mistook him for a spy from the US or NATO. He was 64 years old. Among the main criticisms Russell Bentley had regarding American society, from steady wage growth to the concentration of wealth in the hands of a few, largely reflected the line of the progressive American Democrats. But he went much further than that. Bentley believed that the world is governed by an obscure conspiracy of oligarchs who control everything, from Western media outlets to the appointment of the next president of the United States. However, Bentley's worldview was full of contradictions. While he denounced the totalitarian impulses of the United States, he was poetic and complacent towards many foreign dictators of the past and present, such as Muammar Gaddafi of Libya, Hugo Chavez of Venezuela, and Bashar al-Assad of Syria. Russell Bentley also said that he would never visit the United States again, and that if he ever did return, it would be to drive a T-72 tank and lead a revolution in the country. Bentley's friends highlighted his engagement in humanitarian and particularly military activities, describing him as an exceptional figure. Authorities from Russia, the United States, and Ukraine have not yet officially commented on the case.